Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or morning, or night, or day. Wherever it is, wherever you are, welcome to the Impressions in Motion podcast, the place where we just chat about stuff and you listen along, hopefully. I'm Chris, and I'm joined today, as usual, by my dear friend, Mr. 55 himself. Please introduce yourself.
It's me, Curtis. How you doing? Oh man, I was totally planning just to do, a normal man voice, but then I was just thinking, I as soon as I spoke, I was like, this is a voice. It's gonna carry. And I was like, no, I couldn't keep going. I'm sorry, I ruined the podcast. I said, let's just stop. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm done. Bye.
Okay, well, that was episode 5.
I've got so many problems.
Alright, so this is a complete on-the-fly episode. We haven't got anything planned. It's a very true Impressions in Motion. What are we going to talk about, Curtis?
Well, on my side of things, I have a few films and TV show related things to discuss. Maybe some, a little bit of gaming stuff as well. So, that's what I've got to contribute to the table today. How about you, Mr. Chris?
Well, me, I thought it would be interesting if we kind of take a step back from our usual topics. Maybe talk about something a bit different. Maybe get your thoughts on some other general things that go on in the world besides movies and TVs and games and stuff. So, yeah, I might ask you about some things later on. But, yeah, I've got some films to talk about. And I suppose we should chat about Justice League as well.
Mate, yeah, I only just checked on Letterboxd, about maybe 20 minutes ago, and that you had actually seen it. I was like, oh, mate, I know you're going to have some interesting words to say about that.
Well, should we start with that then, for a change?
Yeah, okay.
Alright, now you are much, much more into the whole comic book movies than I am. So why don't you start, kind of tell me your thoughts, your expectations, and what you thought of it.
Alright, so Justice League. Before the film had come out, I had I think I was in two minds about it. It could go one of two ways. It could either be, pretty good or absolutely pants. I mean, obviously, if you are any kind of person that follows any sort of film news, then you would be aware of the amount of drama, trouble, rumors, and speculation going on behind the scenes at Justice League with, Zack Snyder coming on to direct the film after Batman vs. Superman, the amount of changes that they had to make to, course correct the tone and shift it into a lighthearted direction. Include a little bit more humor, and especially after Wonder Woman came out, they had to change a few things over. Zack Snyder and the tragedy with his family caused him to drop off the project. Joss Whedon came in to fill out was it some pickup shots, but then apparently he ended up filming a lot more than just some random reshoots. There was talk of conflicting tones in the film. All this talk of Henry Cavill and the disappearance of his moustache via questionable CGI. There was just so much drama before this film came out, and besides Wonder Woman, I hadn't really been a fan of many, if any, of the DCEU films so far. Man of Steel being probably the best film that they'd made to that point, but that's only because it was more of a solo-based film and wasn't really concerned with expanding the universe because it was just the first of its kind. But anyway, that aside, Justice League, I saw it, no, it wasn't opening day. It was close to opening day. Anyway, I saw it and I thought it was alright. It was not nearly as bad as I expected it to be, and I found it more, I guess, entertaining and engaging than, Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad. However, that being said, the film should have been so much better, considering that this is the bloody Justice League, like, you know, is it DC's, like, you know, is it Avengers? You know, DC's answer to the Avengers. Like, this should have been like the most incredible thing in the history of existence. And the fact that Warner Brothers and DC have literally like messed up their universe from the way in which they handled progression of like expanding their universe, throwing all these inconsistent styles at us and just squandering so many story-based, you know, potential adaptations from the comics, and then translating it into like just a whole load of what the hell. The problem with Justice League just speaks to a larger issue as to how Warner Brothers and DC have handled their cinematic universe as a whole. And, you know, I could talk about that for an eternity, but we don't have that kind of time. But suffice to say, it was better than I expected, but at the same time, it is just an average film at best, with some decent elements, but just overall,
All right. Okay. So it was respectable on some levels to you then?
Yes.
And you'd say it's better than Suicide Squad and Batman versus Superman?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like, yeah. Let's just leave it at that for now.
All right. Well, for me, you know, I don't really have much investment in comic book movies these days. I kind of just go and see them for a bit of cheap entertainment, and I haven't seen Man of Steel, so maybe I should give that a watch if you say it's like the best one out at the moment. But in terms of Justice League, I just found it very, very dull.
I can understand that.
It was just, I think some scenes were decent. Let's talk about some of the good stuff first.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
You know, the characters, I don't really know too much about DC, but, you know, fair enough. I thought the characters were all right. They did lack characterization. That cyborg guy, I felt there's so much more to explore there, and his introduction in a kind of movie with other characters didn't help his characterization at all. And that's also kind of true for Ezra Miller as Flash. I think he was great in the film. I like that he brought a little bit of humor in there, and I really like him as an actor. And I thought one of the best scenes in the film. Should we go into spoilers?
You can if you want. We can just
okay.
time code it.
I'm just going to mention this. This scene. It takes place in about the middle of the film. Basically, when they revive Superman. And then, you know, he's kind of out of it a bit. He's not really himself. And he starts fighting, you know.
Oh, I think I know exactly what you're going to say.
And Wonder Woman, you know, Cyborg and what's that Atlantis guy called?
The Aquaman.
Aquaman, yeah. They've got him pinned down. And then the Flash is he speeds up, starts zooming around the back. And it goes into slow motion. And Superman, you could just turns his head so slowly and just looks at him. And then on Ezra's face is just this like kind of look of shock, and I really liked that scene. I thought it was really well composed and just framed and done, and it was a real kind of like, oh shit scene, you know, something's going down here. This is really cool. And that whole kind of brawl they have, where it's in like slow motion, and Superman's really going at it, and the Flash is kind of dodging. And this whole time he has this like really look of shock on his face. So I thought that was a really nice scene. And at that point I was like, damn, yeah, this has got some moments in it. Yeah. But those moments were so infrequent for me. And the biggest problem I have was with the villain, who was just so completely, you know, cookie cutter. It's just nothing new there at all. And I just thought it was so very bland, and there's some lines in there like, oh, he lives to conquer. It's lines like that are just so flimsy. There's no characterization, there's no background, and basically it's kind of like, oh, he's evil because he wants to destroy the world, and then he wants to destroy the world because he's evil, and that's all there is to it. It's just this loop of dullness. There's not really any build-up to his character. He's just, here's a bad guy, there needs to be a bad guy, this is it. I just felt like they could have really done a lot more. They really could have got the writing a bit better and the characterization better. and to make more of an impact, and that impact just wasn't there with me. And I also don't like this trend in comic book movies where I think they've gotten so big now, the stakes are so huge that they need to cram the screen with so much destruction and such a mess of bad guys for the heroes to fight, that all the villains just start looking like faceless drones. I mean, this is the problem that Suicide Squad had, where the villains were literally faceless. They were just bad guys for like the heroes to fight. And it's also true in the Avengers. Cannon fodder. And it was the same in Justice League. And those scenes are just so free of tension that I just found them very, very dull. And it's just quite disappointing to have this one villain who is very poor himself, and then there's not anything to like kind of back him up. He doesn't have any kind of like lieutenants or anything like that. There's just him, and then there's a whole load of drones. And I feel that's what like these comic movies really need for me. They need a kind of a whole cast of villains. They need some like a hierarchy of bad guys. Like if you look at something like Star Wars, for example, you've got stormtroopers who are pretty much the faceless drones of that film, and the droids as well. But there's loads of different droids, and there's a whole hierarchy of bad guys with at least some degree of individuality. And that's what I feel keeps those movies entertaining. You know, you have a kind of a solid, very, you know, up there, this is the bad guy, but then there's a whole horde of other characters surrounding them who are evil for their own reasons and have their own motivations and stuff like that. And that's what was just lacking for me in a lot of comic book movies, and especially in Justice League. I think at the core, it's a fun movie and it has some really good moments, but as a film, it lacks in so many areas, and I wasn't very impressed with it, to be honest. I would say I preferred Batman versus Superman.
All right. Interesting indeed. All right, I'm gonna have to jump in. Okay, so like you said, like, you know, was it your little summary statement there? The film has fun elements, and I feel like the character interaction of the heroes is literally the strongest element of the film. It's the only shining light in this really strange, messy film. Because I acknowledge that the film is messy, like, you know, there's some issues with pacing, certain scenes, especially towards the beginning, where characters are hopping all over the place, and there feels like there's no proper sense of, like, flow and continuity between certain scenes. You can tell certain scenes were, like, you know, was it reshot, some of the CGI looks off, especially some of that green screen looks disgustingly basic. And some of the action sequences, you know me, like, for those who don't know, I'm a massive fan of just action scenes, whether it be, like, you know, from hand-to-hand combat to, like, you know, a well-shot car chase, and, like, you know, for these, you know, superhero films, you know, you've got a wealth, like, of material to work from, especially with the decades worth of action sequences that these heroes have been part of. So, you know, there's a whole level of creativity that you can literally just rip from the comic and put onto screen. And some of these action sequences were so uninspired and just had some of the most basic, generic, just downright elements that you could find in, like, you know, a superhero film. But at the same time, there were certain scenes where some of the characters interacted with each other in a certain way during some of these action sequences that were cool. Take, for instance, I'm going back to the spoiler territory, Superman Resurrection. When he came back, that was cool. Seeing the Justice League all try to take him on, and he was just owning them. I think the first moment where I was just like, oh, was when Wonder Woman went on to take him out, and they were just headbutting each other. But that point where he just flew up and then headbutted her to the ground, I was like, damn, that was so cool. But then when, obviously, you talk about the scene where Superman literally looks at the Flash while he's in the Speed Force in quick motion, I'm like, that was the coolest thing ever. And then seeing Superman actually almost able to hit the Flash while he's, like, you know, dodging for his life, that was bloody wicked. and I was like, this is what I need. And then you go back to whatever happening with the story, with Steppenwolf and his stupid cubes of power. One thing that bothered me about those is that while we are told what they're capable of, at the same time you still don't quite understand why they exist or how they exist, and where the limitation on their power. Why do they have to be part of that weird like monolith sort of thing that's in that factory when they put him into oh god, and boom tubes? How the hell do those things work? Do they just teleport people from place to place? And if so, where and how are they operated? And oh god, there's just a few things in that film that baffle me, and it feels like there's missing information. And this is one of those sort of comic book films that really could have benefited from, like, I don't know, 10 to 20 minutes of additional time just to help clean up some of these plot elements. I enjoyed learning about, was it the mythology behind, like, the mother boxes, what happened prior to, was it what happened on Earth with, some of the old races like the Amazons and the Atlanteans. Some of that stuff was cool. Some of the conflict between, like, certain team members like Batman and Wonder Woman was cool. And yeah, I had certain fun with the film. There were certain comic references and stuff that I've seen in the animated show that was done here that was great, and I was having a good time. But at the same time, this film should have been so much better. And again, it's all just down to the way in which Warner Bros. And DC have executed this universe so far. It's just a mishandled mess. And it pains me to see this universe fall so hard, because in their animated films and even in their animated TV shows, like Justice League from the mid-2000s and Young Justice has been some of the best adapted DC material that you could find. And the fact that they've already adapted this stuff and made it work, and they still haven't been able to find a way to translate it on screen, saddens me.
Yeah, I feel like we're on pretty much the same page. You probably liked it a bit more than I did, but we share the same sort of criticism, and it seems like we share the same favorite part. But as a piece, as a whole film, it just was too lacking in areas that it didn't form a real cohesive and entertaining and fulfilling experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, I feel like I was a bit harsh on Justice League there.
No, mate, like, the thing is, you can be as harsh as you like. The thing is, I'm sure you might have seen online that there's still fairly mixed opinions about this. I've seen some people that hated the film, some people that thought it was alright, some people that thought, it's better than some of the previous films, some that say it's the worst. And there are some people that actually proper love the film. It's like, oh my god, I'm seeing the Justice League on screen for the first time. It's like one of the best experiences of my life. Some people are treating it like the first Avengers, and I'm like, wow. I mean, like, more power to you if you can feel that from that film, but I can't.
Yeah, well, obviously it didn't disgust me. Like, there are certain films where I just don't see very much merit in at all. I mean,
yeah,
Justice League, it is worth watching. I don't regret watching it. At certain points, I was like, why bother going to see this movie? But then it did redeem itself in parts.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's not terrible, but I would say I preferred Batman versus Superman, even though I criticised the villain in Justice League and the villain in Batman versus Superman is just as bad. At least in the other film, there was a sense of an actual proper build-up and actual character arcs, whereas in Justice League, it was just too little. There was just not enough material there, not enough development, not enough characterization. So that's why I preferred the previous film. But, it's not terrible, but it definitely could have been a lot better. So, yeah.
Nice.
All right. What else have you been watching since last time?
Film-wise, there's just one other thing, and that is that film Molly's Game. I don't think it's even got a release date for a little while. But yeah, when I was out at my local Cineworld, they had an unlimited screening where sometimes they have unlimited screenings where they don't tell you what the film is until you get in there and experience it when it happens. And it just happened to be Molly's Game. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot this film is coming out. That film with Jessica Chastain and Idris Elba where Chastain plays this woman that was like training to be an athlete at one point, but then had a accident, and somehow she gets involved in the world of was it poker and gambling, and then like through her determination and smarts, she sort of rises up and then becomes like, you know, sort of powerful figure in this like in one of the cities that she's living in. But then, you know, as she grows a little bigger, more and more complications start to show up, and it's just this story about how this whirlwind of an adventure goes from like, you know, was it one level to another level, and you know, just learning about what happened in her life, how she ended up in the situation that she's in, and how she needs like, you know, a lawyer to help her, you know, out of like, you know, the next level drama she ended up in. That's a very terrible summary of what the film was about. But
is this
like,
based on a true story?
Yes.
I thought so. I thought I'd heard something similar like that in the news.
Yeah. Because it's the film is based on the book from the real life character whose name I don't have up on the screen at the moment, and I'm not going to look it up because I am lazy. But the film is adapted from the book that Aaron Sorkin has written and directed, and that film was pretty damn good. One of the things I really liked about the film was the dialogue. Like, you know, Sorkin has one heck of a way with like bloody dialogue in his films. Ever since I saw, was it The Social Network, which I think was the first film I've seen, like, you know, was it with his writing talents attached, he is able to write like, you know, is it dialogue which is you know, witty, very dramatic, has a lot of like, you know, weight to it, and he can write really damn good monologues with certain characters. And there is just some line in this film where it's, you know, really intense and dramatic, but also quite funny. And while I didn't laugh at all the humor, just because, like, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit of a robot, a lot of these scenes did have, like, you know, really well timed like humor sprinkled in amongst all the drama and more emotional material that happens in the film. The performances from everybody involved was incredible. Jessica Chastain is one of those actresses that I've really liked since I saw her in The Help, and while I've not seen all of you know, more major films that, you know, got her like Oscar related buzz, I feel like this is, you know, Oscar related, you know, material for her. She was just really good, and while I didn't really like her character that much, she played the character really well. Idris Elba was damn good in this film, and so was Michael Cera. I've never seen him in a, you know, proper dramatic role before, but he was damn good. I really enjoyed his, you know, character in the film, and just everyone else just turned in really good performances, especially Kevin Costner as well. Yeah, the film looked great, was good, and for me it took a little while for it to get going, because it's not so much that the film is slow, it's more so that at first I wasn't overly invested in what was going on with the characters, because I found her a little unlikable. But after a certain event happens in the film, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see why I can actually sympathize with you now. By the end of the film, I'm like, yeah, this is probably like, you know, best of the year contention potentially. So yeah,
nice. Sounds like one to look out for then.
Oh, definitely, man. I mean, like, even as a guy who ends up watching some of these films where I have trouble following certain, like, you know, terminology / jargon that ends up being in certain films, especially when it comes to politics, you know, law enforcement, or when The Big Short came out, there was so many technical terms that was going on about, like, you know, is it housing, and, like, you know, is it all that sort of stuff that, you know, just went over my head. And there's certain gambling terms that you have to be paying a lot of attention to in order to understand what they mean, because certain things that they say at an earlier point in the film will become relevant later on, and I just, certain points where I'm just like, what the hell are these people going on about? So yeah, that's more a problem for me than anything else. But if you can follow that kind of information, there is just so many wonderful moments of tension and drama and emotion, and it's just like you get swept up in it. It's just it's an experience.
Nice. When is that out, did you say?
I don't know when the UK release date is, because with some of these unlimited screenings, they sometimes come out like at least you know, a few weeks to a month beforehand. Let me have a quick look. I'm gonna stall for time. Okay, so so I'm looking on IMDb at the moment, and according to that site, the US will get the film in a limited release on Christmas Day, but it won't be officially released until January 5th. whereas we get it on January 1st. So literally, like, you know, New Year's Day it comes out over here, so we get it about 4 days beforehand.
Oh, that's just like Silence last year,
Yeah,
that Martin
yeah,
Scorsese film. That came out, I think, around about Christmas, limited release in the US, and then it wasn't released until I think the 2nd or 1st of January over here. But yeah, man, I'll look out for that. Try and catch a viewing.
God, I'm so sorry. Literally, as you were saying that, I was like, I don't want to seem rude and not say anything, but I was yawning, so I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna have to say something. All right. Yeah. So what you been watching film wise?
Well, usually it's 9 films for some reason, but this time it's 8. So I'm one short, but I won't go into all of them because we don't have a lot of time today. But I will chat about half of them. And the first one I saw was Borg versus McEnroe, which I've been wanting to catch for a while now. And yeah, I thought it was it was a decent watch. It was nowhere near as good as I thought it would be. I thought it was going to kind of be like a tennis version of Rush, but it was nowhere near as captivating and just, you know, thrilling and interesting to watch. When you see Rush, that's just such a well told film, and it really gives you a tremendous sense of the characters. And you really, after the film, well, I did anyway, went and looked up the characters in the film and just, you know, kind of read about their life and their relationship and just, you know, outside of this film world. And I didn't really get the sense that I needed to do that for Borg versus McEnroe. I thought it was a good introduction to that sporting moment, and, you know, McEnroe and Borg. But yeah, it just wasn't as captivating as I thought it could have been. But it was still a good watch, and I really like Shia LaBeouf in movies. I know a lot of people have very differing opinions on him, but I like to see him, and I thought he was good in the role. So yeah, if you have some time, if you can catch it one day, I'd recommend watching it. And the next film I saw is called Bad Genius, and this is a film from Thailand. I'm not going to try and attempt to say what the film is called in its native country or what any of the actors are actually called, because they have some of the longest names I've ever seen in my life. But the film itself is a sort of a kind of a thriller, sort of caper film, following this kind of set of characters. One of them is really tremendously smart. It's set basically in a college or university, a really prestigious kind of place in Thailand. And one of the characters is able to study with ease. You know, she's really good at exams.
Yeah.
But she's convinced by her classmates to start cheating, not for herself, but for them. You know, she starts giving out the answers to exams and helping them with their work, not in the traditional sense, like, you know, helping them study, but just providing them with ways to cheat.
Yeah.
So the film is essentially about that, and it has a couple of levels to it. The cheating gets more intense, and the stakes grow more and more as they begin to try and start cheating on national exams and stuff like that. And it becomes this whole sort of enterprise. And it was I thought it was a really brilliant film. I thought the main character, Lynn, I won't say her actress's name because I can't, but I thought she was really, really great in the film. I don't think she's actually been in any other major roles before, so this was a really stunning debut. And I thought the plot built in such strong directions. You know, it kept elevating, the stakes kept growing, and I was never bored watching it. It's such an entertaining film. And although at some points it does get a bit much, you know, you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit, it was just such a fun watch that I think probably it might make its way into my top 10 by the end of the year, depending on what else I see from now until the 1st of January. But yeah, Bad Genius, it was a really, really good film. I'd recommend checking it out if you can. And I also managed to fit in a Japanese film. This one was called Petal Dance. It's made in 2000. Well, it was released in 2013, and visually, it's just such a beautiful film. There's a Japanese photographer I like called Osamu Yokonami. He's one of my favorite photographers, and his pictures are so well framed and just positioned. And this film really reminded me of his work, and it also reminded me of this quote I read a long time ago. From Takeshi Kitano, who said, at least in his earlier work, he tried to shoot them in such a way that if you pause the film at any moment, you know, the frame would make a good photograph. And I think this is especially true of Petal Dance. You could pause the film at any moment and it would make a stunning kind of like vista, you know, a stunning picture you could hang on your wall. It was really visually quite alluring. As for the film itself, it's quite an unhurried film, you know. It's very quiet, quite pensive. It doesn't have too much of a plot. Essentially, it's about a group of characters who go to visit another character who was recently found to be, you know, walking out into the sea. It's very vague on whether or not she was actually trying to commit suicide. And it kind of dances around these quite heavy themes in, you know, a very kind of alluring and beautiful way. And the cast are really, really terrific. I mean, Sakura Ando's in there. I really love her. She's one of my favorite Japanese actresses. Ai Miyazaki, she's really wonderful. And the film is chiefly about the characters, really. The characterization is very understated. It's very natural. And, you know, it's all about how the characters interact in the company and their rapport, their relationship, and, you know, their musings and stuff like that. And I think even some of the lesser pronounced characters, there's an ex-husband character, for example, who's on screen for maybe about 10 minutes in total, but I thought he came across as a very wholesome person. You know, the characters feel like they have a lot of history, and I thought that's really tremendous for such a short film. I think it's only about an hour and a half. But a lot is conveyed through, you know, silence, through facial expressions and subtle glances and, you know, wordless exchanges. And just the way the camera lingers and observes. It's very evocative, but, you know, in a quiet sort of way. And yeah, I just thought it was really, really attentively crafted and very loving film. I think some may find it a bit too slow, a bit too dull. But for me, as a character study, as a piece, you know, about the cast and about the interactions of this group of characters, I thought it was really, really lovingly done and really, really quite tremendous. And that brings me quite comfortably onto Columbus, which is a film from this year. And like Petal Dance, it has that really wonderful cinematography and framing, and you can just pause the film at almost any moment. It'll make a brilliant picture. But this is a film directed by Kogo Nada, who is a South Korean director, I think. But it stars John Cho and Haley Lou Richardson, who was recently seen in, what was it, Edge of 17 from last year, I think. And essentially, it does a similar sort of thing to Lost in Translation, where it's about a younger female character and an older male character who kind of strike up this unexpected relationship. And through each other and through this relationship, they start kind of finding the means to fill this sort of void within themselves. You know, they kind of find themselves through each other. And I thought it was such a beautiful film. I think for some it may be a bit too pretentious, perhaps, maybe a bit too dialogue heavy, you know, a bit too inconsequential. But for me, it was exactly what I wanted, you know, at that moment. Sometimes you might feel like a particular film. At this point, I really, really felt like watching a film like Columbus, and it delivered on so much. And I wouldn't be surprised if it made its way into my top 5 come the end of the year. And I think the last film I'll mention is called The Night is Short, Walk On Girl, which is a nice title.
Man, that sounds like a song or something, man.
It does a bit, but it's an anime film made this year by Masaki Yuasa, who is a really great director. He did Mind Game, and it's essentially this quite outlandish film, takes place over one night, and it follows this girl as she kind of you know, traverses the night in sort of episodes. First, she kind of has this showdown with this like sage kind of character, but not like a brawl or a battle. It's this drinking contest.
Oh, damn.
And that's kind of the first episode is about that, and then the second episode is about this kind of book fair, and she's looking for this particular book. And then there's another episode where she finds herself in a sort of impromptu street performance, and it's sort of in parts, in sections, and it very fluently kind of moves from one piece to another. And all throughout this, there's this male character. I think he's 1 year or so above her in college or whatever, and he has feelings for her, so he's sort of tracking her down to try and confess to her. But, you know, he kind of gets the short end of the stick. He can never quite catch up with her, and all these bad things keep happening to him. Or she's, you know, meeting all these characters and having this great time. He's having this really miserable time, and there's a great fun contrast there. It was just a really fun movie, and I haven't watched too many anime films recently, apart from last time I mentioned Fireworks. This was better than Fireworks. I really enjoyed it. And Masaki Yuasa has actually done another anime film this year. I think it's called Lou Over the Wall. I think it's actually based on The Little Mermaid, like Ponyo was a few years ago.
Yeah.
This is all, stuff I've heard. I'm not saying this as a fact, but that's actually coming out to cinemas next Wednesday. So I'm going to try and go and catch that. But yeah, The Night is Short, Walk On Girl was a good watch. And those are my main films for the past 2 weeks. There goes old Thunderfists typing away.
Mate, I had to try and remember the name of the bloody film, so I was gonna put it on my watch list.
I think it could have easily been a short, anime series. But it's nice that they fit it into a film, and it really has this sort of, theatrical presence to it as well. So I think it really works as a piece, as a cohesive piece. You watch it all together. So yeah, it's really good. You should check it out.
All right, man. I've got it written down. I will not forget.
Nice.
All right, man. What do you want to talk about now?
All right, man. We can move on to this video game and TV stuff if you want to chat about that.
Okay. So I've been watching a good few things here and there, like the DC TV universe. Over at the CW, they've had their recent crossover episode across their 4 TV shows, Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, and Legends of Tomorrow. They do these sort of crossover episodes where there's one major storyline that combines all the heroes into, this big old next level team up episode where they have to fight a much larger enemy and stuff like that. It has lots of stuff to do with time travel and alternate Earths and, doppelgangers and, superpowered individuals and that kind of stuff. It's a nightmare to keep a track of if you're not fully well versed in all of the other TV shows and at least have seen a good chunk of it to understand what's going on. You have to be a diehard fan that's seen pretty much all 4 series in order to, well, not all 4, but to have seen at least 2.5, maybe 3 out of 4 of the series in order to understand what's going on. But it's actually been pretty fun. I've watched 3 out of 4 of the crossover episodes so far, and it's just a lot of fun to see these characters come together and interact. Certain people we haven't seen for a long time in the show have come back. Some new characters have shown up and, done some really interesting things. And because the episode deals with alternate Earths, you get to see alternate versions of heroes in, good, bad, and different situations. And for a TV budget, they've been able to create some really compelling, fun, and dramatic material with good characterization and interesting stories. It feels like it's ripped right out of a comic book, and it's sad that on a television show, crossover, that they was able to do a better job with their heroes than they have been able to do in the DCEU so far. But yeah, that show's been a lot of fun. Recently, the Marvel show The Runaways aired, I think, was it last week, Monday? And I've never read the source material. I just know that the Runaways comics is, this series of comics that a lot of people really love amongst this, certain area of the Marvel fan base. Mainly has to do with these young children / teenagers who find out their parents are bad guys, so they end up running away and also have their own abilities and stuff like that. That's the extent that I know of what the source material is about. My sister's gone on about it for years, and when Marvel eventually acquired the property, I was wondering if they'd ever adapt it into a film or a TV series. And once Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has started going, I'm like, oh, I could probably see this as a TV series. But it's only taken up until 2017 for them to have a different platform to launch it off of, because it's not via Netflix or ABC. It's via Hulu, and obviously we don't have that over here in the UK, but that's the main platform that's heading off this show. And I've watched the first 3 episodes. They're all a sort of 3-part premiere, allowing you to see the perspective of what's happening via the children's lives, what's happening via the parents' lives, and then seeing everything sort of cross over. There's a lot of manipulation of time, so it's non-linear. but you also get to see that there's tragedy, mystery, like lies and deceit going on, and there's also people discovering stuff about themselves, discovering abilities, like learning of secret truths, and it's handled really well. It's mainly like it's got that sort of young adult, like teenage drama stuff, but it's done in a really good way.
Yeah,
you like all the characters. They're all very compelling, different, diverse in like not only race but also their personalities and the way in which they interact. It feels very natural and fun, and as someone who doesn't really know the source material, it's easy to get into and appreciate, and it's just a breath of fresh air because it's so different from like your standard superhero TV shows where it's just about like a hero, whether they be like reluctant or not wanting to save the world or stuff. It's just dealing with more human based issues, and for the majority of the cast, I don't know who the heck any of them are besides James Masters, that is from Buffy, but everybody else is like they all do a good job. So I'm only 3 episodes in so far, but it's damn good TV.
Nice.
The only other thing I've watched recently that's of note is The Punisher. I binged that show so bad, well, at least for the first 9 episodes, and then gave it a break, then watched the last few periodically. But that show is damn good. It's probably the best Netflix show, like, since Daredevil, possibly ever. Any person who's seen all of the Netflix shows so far knows that there's been like, what?
You say it's even better than Stranger Things?
Oh, no. I'm talking about, like, within the Netflix, like, Marvel shows.
Oh, Marvel show, okay.
Yeah. Did you see, I'm diverting for a quick second. Did you see Stranger Things Season 2?
No, I've not seen Season 1. Don't you remember what happened last episode?
Man, it's been a long time, man. Like,
it's been 2 weeks.
Mate, 2 weeks is long enough for me to forget. Like,
give me till Christmas, and then I'll watch it all.
All right. Well, you have until the end of the year. If you haven't seen it by that point, I'm coming over.
And doing what?
I'm gonna force you to watch it. That's right. We're gonna get some pizza.
Is this gonna be like in that scene in Clockwork Orange? Are you gonna like peel my eyelids open?
Yeah, yeah. Strap you down and like is it just stick you in front of the TV screen? He's like, "You having fun yet?"
Oh, God.
But yeah. The Punisher, what I liked about the show is that of all the Netflix Marvel shows, it's the most consistent one that they've had, just in terms of like pacing and the story arc and having interesting surprises and revelations that keep things going. There's no sort of peak period where the show just sort of gets really good and then just falls off or has an inconsistency afterwards. The show just ascends, and just when you think you gotten to a point where the drama, surprises, or like violence has shocked you, it just goes even further than that. And my gosh, I mean, I'm one of those sort of guys that's not like adverse to like seeing violent things on the TV screen, but I have to admit, The Punisher made me wince a little bit because some of the stuff that happens to some of these people, whether it's him dishing out the damage or other people, is just pure filth. Disgusting, painful, crunchy. Oh my gosh. And I really want to go into detail, but you have to see it. Basically, it's damn good. And I know that some people online that's belittled the show, saying, "Oh, there's not enough action. He's meant to be the Punisher, and he's all just walking around. There's so much talking and like all this story stuff." I'm like, you shut your mouth, man.
When's he gonna punish?
Yeah, pretty much that kind of stuff. And annoyingly, I think that just speaks to a larger number of people who don't really know who the Punisher is. He's literally just a human version of the Terminator. He's a war veteran. He has a lot of psychological issues. He has a lot of emotional. He has a lot of emotional baggage, and I
wouldn't say the Terminator has much psychological issues, though.
I know, but he's the Terminator in the sense that once he's determined and he's got a target, he will go to the ends of the earth to take them out, and he's not very quick about it. He's slow, but he's always continuously moving, and he messes you up in the most brutal manner possible. I mean,
sounds like the villain in that film. What is it called? Where that horror film where there's that character, that entity that follows you until you die.
Man, you're gonna have to give me a name. I'm no good. I think I know what you're going on about, but I'm hazy right now.
It Follows. It Follows. That's what it's called. It Follows.
Oh, you're talking about that film. I never saw it. I was meant to, but I was like, nah, horror film, no.
No, it wasn't bad, but you saw that film Don't Breathe, didn't you? Isn't that a horror film?
Oh yeah, that's only because the hype for that film was so big, and my mate recommended me check it out as well. So I was like, you know what? It's one of those sort of things where if a mate really recommends me something, that will sway me far more than any sort of like trailer or thingy that I'm half and half
It
about.
Follows was okay. I thought it was a decent horror film, but it had a really, really good soundtrack. So,
Okay.
Sounds like you got to go to bed.
Oh man, I always need to go to bed. I'm useless. Other than that, I mean, I've been watching a few bits of TV here and there. I was watching a bit of Gravity Falls. I've rewatched a few episodes of Ed, Edd n Eddy, the other day. Some Dexter's Laboratory, which was fun. Is there anything else I'm trying to think of right now? That's about it. Yeah, TV-wise. And
TV-wise, for me.
Yeah, TV-wise. Yeah, what are you doing? You watching that Peaky Blinders thing? Is that what you're watching?
Yeah, watching that Peaky Blinders. Yeah.
How's it going so far?
Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. It's really nice to be back in the company of these characters. They're just really, really great. I won't say too much. Well, I can't say too much because there's only been 2 episodes so far. But Cillian Murphy, as always, is just excellent, and Adrian Brody is killing it so far. So yeah. Really high expectations for the coming episodes.
Ooh. Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it. I really love Peaky Blinders. I will mention one part because the first episode was really intense and great for getting you straight back into the action. And one thing I really appreciate in Peaky Blinders is just quite brutal. They don't shy away from things. And there's one scene in the first episode, Cillian's character is confronting basically this character who's been spying on him. And instead of trying to... Well, he tries to get some information from him, and the guy basically just says, fuck you. And in maybe some other series, some movies, the character might then get a punch or, a gun to the face or a kick in the shin to try and, get some more information out of them. But Cillian's character just and then shoots him in the face. And it's just, I love how it's just really kind of brutal and just intense and really doesn't go along with many of the cliches that you might see in a lot of other TV shows. So I really love the intensity of Peaky Blinders. And the characters are just really, really great. And the whole Shelby family is so well cast. I'm going to be really sad when the series ends for good, because it's been a really good ride. And then season 4, it's kind of gone back to the roots. Season 3 was probably, if I had to pick a kind of anomaly in the series so far, it was season 3. But season 4 looks like it's back on form. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
I'm hyped. You every time you keep talking about this show, you're literally just twisting my arm just that bit more to try and check the show out. And I will, just after I've caught up with a few of these other TV shows. Oh, that's the one other thing I should have said. I'll try to keep this brief as well. Dragon Ball Super. I got back on the hype again. After I left the show off, I think after watching those, was it 2 other filler episodes that I think I mentioned the last episode of the episode before that. I just went full into binge mode again, and I've watched 30 episodes.
Damn.
So now, over the last week, I've watched 30 episodes, and now I'm about, I think, just shy of 20 out from around 20 out from the current airing episodes. And my gosh, the show is awesome, but my gosh, I have so many issues with it now. One thing that's really improved is the animation. The overall art and animation from where the show has been before, especially with the previous arcs, is just stellar. Some of the action sequences is some of the best I've seen in Dragon Ball period since the animated films that's come out, Battle Gods and Resurrection F. there's just there's a better sense of confidence with like, you know, the art and animation. And while it's not always consistently like really good, when it does shine, it has some of the best beautiful stuff where you're just like, this is why I love this show. These guys are on point. Toei, you're doing it right. And some of the story elements now, it's just gotten to this ridiculously crazy level. Some of it I love just because it expands the world and the mythology and characters in a way that, looking beyond Dragon Ball Z, you're just wondering how would you go from like point A to point B of adding extra stakes. And they do it in a really interesting way, even though some of it does feel like, you know, fan fiction on occasions. The only major issues I have with the show right now is that with certain characterization of some of my favorite people, and the way in which like the Super Saiyan transformations have been handled with certain new characters and power levels. This show now more so than ever just doesn't give a crap about power levels. I can understand that some people have been training and they can get stronger in a certain amount of time, but like you putting certain characters against each other, some who haven't been training for years, or some people that just showed up out of the blue, and they fight each other and are either almost on like on par with each other, when you know that one of these current characters clearly has a much higher power level than this person. If you're looking at it logically, it's like logic's thrown out the window, power levels mean nothing. And while it does mean that some of these older characters do get a lot more screen time, like say Gohan, like Android 17 and 18, Krillin, like all these sort of secondary characters who had their moments of shine in Dragon Ball Z sort of during, I guess, the Cell Saga. It's great to see some of these characters return. At the same time, it's just like some of the power levels is just ridiculous. And the one thing that really pisses me off about Dragon Ball Super, more so than anything else, is the way in which they've handled Goku. I know that since, you know, the show was dubbed, they did a lot to change his characterization and make him more of a hero, when he was mainly just a guy that, you know, liked to fight stronger enemies. But the thing is, Goku, even though he's never been like directly, you know, this sort of hope for the universe, at the same time, I feel like over the course of Dragon Ball Z, he went from being this sort of lovable buffoon who had a good heart, but was, you know, a bit of an idiot, into a more confident, stronger individual, especially towards the end of the Buu saga. And I swear these writers have done their best to undo so much of the character development he had in Dragon Ball Z. He's just an idiot doing the most basic, foolish things that, you know he wouldn't do, because he would have learned from the lessons of the past, and he's repeating so many of these issues when it comes to, like, you know, is it fighting mistakes, underestimating his enemies, addressing people in stupid ways, just saying a lot of stupid things that I'm like, is he 12 years old again? Like, what the flying shag are you guys playing at? And some people are willing to defend this, and I'm like, no, there's a way that you can go about and progress characters and make them, you know, still silly, but, you know, make them mature a little bit. And I swear they've made him regress. They've turned him into a Luffy, but not in that sort of fun and enduring kind of way, and more of a, why the hell should I root for you beside the fact that you're super strong? It seems beyond like his scenes in battle where he, you know, seems to be competent at being, you know, smart and having battle tactics. He's just a brain dead lunatic, and I don't understand why this is happening. But other than that, Dragon Ball Super is still a lot of fun. A frustrating yet fun adventure.
How long is it now? How many episodes are there?
I think currently right now there's about either 118 or 119 episodes, and I'm on episode 96. I just finished.
Damn, when is it going to end?
I have no clue. I think like once this show found its groove with the Future Trunks Goku Black Arc thing that went down, I think was it last year, and that was sort of like, I think in the 40s to 60s, that's when the show really found its groove. So I think once they found that fans have really responded well to it, they've just decided, you know what, screw it, we're just going to keep going with this thing. So I think they're going to turn this into another Dragon Ball Z where it just goes on for as far as they can take it. They might even turn it into a One Piece and just make it go beyond, like, you know, is it 200 plus episodes like Dragon Ball Z? And
Damn.
Just, I don't see any end in sight right now, because Dragon Ball Z is the most popular it's been for years at this current point in time. We've reached a new zeitgeist for this again, where Dragon Ball Z is popular, not only with old fans, but like, with new people that don't even know what the hell it is. So I don't think they're going to shut it down anytime soon.
All right. You have to be dedicated to keep up with something like that, though.
Oh, yeah.
There's a couple of anime series that I wanted to watch, but oh man, I don't have the time you do to watch 30 episodes in like a day.
Oh man, I just commit myself because I'm crazy. All right. Is there anything else, or do you want to wrap it up? Because I'm seeing this timer right now. I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah, we can wrap it up now. We can have like a nice old long episode at the end of the year. So let's keep this one short and wrap it up here. Nice little condensed episode.
Cool. I'm ready.
Cool. So who's doing the ending then?
Yeah, you do it.
Oh, gotta do all this stuff today.
That's right.
Okay. So that's that then. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a shorter episode today. Episode 5 will be a kind of condensed little miniature before our epic end of year session, probably at the end of December, early January time. Well, we'll have a nice old long episode where we talk about our favourite movies of the year, top 10 lists maybe, stuff we're looking forward to, and all sorts of other various topics. So please join us for that. Until then, this is Chris bidding you farewell.
Bye.
Jesus.